Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Blaze the Cat here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario and Sonic at Vancouver Olympics, specifically for the Nintendo DS. So last time, we essentially did manage to tackle for some more missions in journey forms of not only in QB with, but as well as from that, we also ended up going back into Polastraits for also tackling for some more missions here and there. And on top of all that stuff though, we did manage to able to recruit with, not only with Silver, but as well as me, Blaze the Cat, due to the forms of one of those dream events that we did somehow manage to able to play through. That's what appears to be FIFA Hockey, in some cases Dream Ice Hockey. In addition to that, we also did manage to able to face up against with both Wario and Waluigi in a bobsled event, despite the fact that we did mess up at one time. Well, that's just mainly because no matter what though, it has been quite some time since we somehow experienced bobsled events on the DS version. So, and in addition to that, we also did manage to able to experience yet another dream event, which appears to be Blazing Bobsleigh, and as a result, we did somehow manage to able to face up against with the next rival battle against with the Big Bullet Bill. And as a result, that particular boss fight is actually quite exhilarating, at least to me anyway. So, and finally, most importantly out of them all though, is that yes indeed, we did manage to able to rescue the yet another snow spirit, and this time what appears to be Icy. So, speaking of Icy though, is about the fact that today for this video, if you couldn't tell already, we're about to be able to explore into the next world, which as far as I'm aware, this might actually be the third and the final winter island we can able to actually traverse into, because aside from all that stuff though, there is technically one last snow spirit we do need to get at some form or another. And as a result though, if you couldn't tell, the next world we're going to be diving into, which appears to be Icepeak. So yeah, this place is filled to the brim with a lot of like climbing involved, or not so much climbing, but more accurately a lot of staircases, as well as some tons of bridges you have to able to go across into. As well as from that though, we might able to actually experience the final set of those Olympic events, like for instance the normal type ones. Like for instance though, I get the feeling we might able to actually experience not only for the sake of the forms of curling, because, well, if you couldn't tell already, we do need to acquire the actual equipment, so that way we can able to actually participating in for curling on the DS version. And on top of all that stuff though, there's also going to be moguls, which appears to be part of the forms of skiing events, as well as that, there's also with the forms of snowboard cross as well, and even especially noticeable with the forms of other skating ones as well. But then again though, that particular discussion can wait though, probably at some point later on though, because, well, if you couldn't tell already, we couldn't do that much, I'm afraid. Well, apart from the fact that we can able to actually do some stuff here and there, like for instance though, is about the fact that we do need to find the actual cave, which pretty much leads us to the next mini game, which as far as I'm aware, it does manage to able to only required Blaze the Cat, by the way, which, straight to the point, I think is going to be yet another one of those mini games that we have to utilize with the microphone and stuff like that for a different particular reason for it. So, but anyway, so yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 8th of February today, in some cases in 2025 today, so much so for the fact that, after all though, about the fact that we've only got about 8 more days to go until something huge is about to happen for our channel. Well, then again though, as far as what Silver has already pointed things out ever since in yesterday's video, that it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that one of our special videos that is something it's related to 1000 subscribers special, that unfortunately though, that particular plan has been delayed during at some point and during the likes of in the next couple of weeks time, especially because no matter what though, we were originally trying to able to do it during the forms of in this week, but we didn't get around to it, so hopefully we'll try to figure something out. So anyways though, so as you can tell, yes, I'm going to be playing as myself, so as a result we do need to melt all those ice cubes, and also in addition to that, we need to place those little familiar cube objects on the correct spots. And so much so, we're about to try to figure out this puzzle anyway, before we're able to actually open up the actual, the gate itself. So either way, yes, this does require a microphone, by the way, so, yeah, I was able to try to blow into the microphone quickly. So, yeah, basically in this part right here is that you need to, you know, place those cubes in the correct spots, you know? So, yeah, as a result though, there's nothing right to hum about in terms of the forms of this particular minigame right here. But there is one little thing you might able to realize about this, is that there is that particular boss battle coming up that I'm not exactly a huge fan of. But that's just mainly because, well, if you remember, back on the Wii version anyway, when, I suppose no matter what though, that Daffy Duck or, Piglet have already experienced, without a doubt, is the most frustrating boss in the forms of in the Wii version of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, where it only takes place in Team Festival, by the way, in day 13, and basically though you have to face up against with a whole bunch of dry bones in one of those curling events on the Wii version. Well, usually Mars will refer to as 4 of those dry bones in joining that specific team, and yeah, that particular boss is pretty much frustrating as it is, especially it's actually not only encourages you to able to try to deal with the forms of some skill involved when it comes to strategy, but as well as from that though, sometimes it can be luck based at times depending on the computer player's behavior. So anyway, so as you can see, we can now able to actually use the curling stone, and this means we can now able to participating in for the curling event. So yeah, I'm very curious to know how that particular version of curling actually plays out to be, but I'm sure enough that we'll talk more about that if we get into that stuff. So anyway, let's talk about the forms of some news and discussions alike while going through this entire process anyway. First of all, is about the fact that apparently though, that Sega has recently able to actually revealed a brand new trademark for the likes of potentially an upcoming Sonic game, which, as far as I'm aware, the game is going to be called Sonic Blitz somehow. But the only thing I'm a little bit puzzled about is that if it's going to be releasing on consoles or mobile phones and stuff like that, because, well, after a while though, it's about the fact that we might able to actually see a couple of Sonic games nowadays when it comes to like not only some console releases and even hybrid consoles as well with Nintendo Switch as well as the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2. So either way though, I suppose time will tell on that one. So anyways, and it's also worth noting for too is about the fact that, well, suffice to say, out of nowhere, until specifically by next week or something like that, we might able to actually get a brand new Game Boy Advance game will be added to the Nintendo Switch Online subscription services, specifically the expansion pack. And what game is going to be coming? Well, as you might can tell, we're about to be receiving Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance. It's now going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So, now I think it's about to due out at some point until on Valentine's Day on the 14th of February. So, yeah, that seems pretty cool though. Especially now we've actually going to be expecting to get 2 Wario Land games on the Nintendo Switch so far. I mean, we are still missing 2 other games ranging from Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, as well as the forms of, well, you get the idea, Wario Land 2. So as a result though, those are the only 2D Wario Land games we've got left for its re-release, for the sake of the forms of, you know, Nintendo Switch games for Wario Land stuff. So either way, despite the fact that we still have no idea when does the new one is going to be revealed, because no matter what though, it's been like almost like what, 17 years ago since the previous one, which appears to be on the Wii. Well, my guess is about the fact that the actual sales numbers didn't exactly go according to plan. So either way though, so as you can tell right there, it's about the fact that we've meet up with Donkey Kong, and so much so, I get the feeling we have to force to play as Silver the Hedgehog for the time being, because if you couldn't tell already, he's going to be participating for a challenge in Moguls. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be able to go and do a lot of skiing, and on top of all that stuff though, it's about the fact that we have to go for a lot of turns and stuff like that, and pull off tricks as well. Except your noticeable differences this time is that it's all around touch controls instead of motion controls. So, yeah, I guess that makes it totally obvious. So, anyway, so as always, we have to watch Donkey Kong's performance first, before we're able to actually dive into our performance there. So, yeah, let's see how he goes. So obviously, much like the console version, or the Wii version I should say, if you're able to actually get so much arrows, then you would able to actually guarantee to get some bit of boost. So, however, if you miss any of them, then chances are though you will slow down for a bit. And it's also the fact that if you try to time your jumps correctly, as what Donkey Kong just did right there, you can able to actually pull off some amount of tricks, at least depending on what draw formation you might able to actually draw on the touchscreen. And as a result though, if you couldn't tell already, that Donkey Kong actually performs a Donkey Kong special, which obviously though it gives you so much points if you do manage to pull this off. And yeah, that's what I can really say about this. So anyways, let's begin our turn right here, and dang it, I didn't get my boost start. So, which I already know for the fact that I will admit though right away, it's been about like what, 6 days ago since I actually have last played this game, because, well, straight to the point though, is about the fact that recently though, Silver, he's almost finishing up every single aspect in terms of the forms of Shadow Generations in Sonic X Shadow Generations, and so much so, for the time being anyway, when it comes to next week anyway, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually upload some more parts of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games on the DS version from now on for next week, because not only for the fact that we can able to actually celebrate the upcoming event for the Mexi Toys YouTube channel anyway, aside from the fact that, you know, we were originally gonna able to celebrate the 1,000 subscriber special, but like I said, it's already been delayed as it is, due to the forms of one of those important events coming up. So, in addition to that though, is about the fact that I'll let Silver can able to actually finish up every single last portions of Shadow Generations by next Saturday, because I don't mind trying to able to take a break on this game for just around a couple of weeks or so, and before I able to actually dive back into this game, during at some point nearly at the end of February for some time, just before when spring is almost approaching during that time period. So I guess that makes it totally obvious about the fact that when spring is almost about to be approaching, then obviously though it will be a winter wrap up. So get it, because you know winter is almost about to be wrapping up soon. So when it comes to the forms of how the fact that we've already experienced December last year and January for this year, and we're still on the forms within the second month of 2025, and yeah, you get the idea for that point. So, but I digress. So, and also another thing else I would like to point out as well is that also for the fact that we actually got not one but 2 anniversaries have already been happened ever since around a couple of days ago. First of all, happy 10th anniversary of the film's release of the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, which I know for the fact that that film is actually pretty alright to me. I mean, no matter what though, I do honestly prefer the first film a little bit more, but that's just mainly because on the first film anyway, it feels a lot more cinematic, and there's also a lot of emphasis on adventurous kind of moments, where it comes to not only for SpongeBob, but also with Patrick as well, and also as far as I'm aware, that, you know, it does manage to contain David Hasselhoff for the sake of the films of the first film anyway, so, but that's just me. So, anyway, so here we are on to the Bonds of Curling event on the DS version, and it plays a little bit slightly similar to the Wii version, except rather than just trying to go for a team-based, so instead, you only have to deal with the forms of one of those tasks by, well, let's just say, for instance, though, on the first part, you have to deal with the forms of the plan of the strategy, and then once you're done with that, then it's obviously your job to able to dang it, I somehow failed this mission. So, in fact, I have no idea what the heck I was doing right there, because I think something tells me about the fact I do need to get one of those opponents' stones out. So, yeah, in fact, let me just quickly double check on the mission description right here. And yeah, I do need to able to let these stones get knocked out, because otherwise, if it's still in, that counts as a failure. So yeah, let's just go ahead and try this again. And as you can tell, that as soon as you're able to fail the mission, you lose one of your hearts. So, but it doesn't really matter, because obviously though, we've already got so much hearts into our disposal, so yeah, it doesn't really matter to the grand scheme of things. So anyway, let's just try this again. So anyway, on the beginning portion of the event though, is about the fact that you have to plan out the strategy, if you couldn't tell. And after that though, you need to able to tap the touchscreen, and on top of all that stuff though, if you're trying to swipe the touchscreen upwards, that actually builds up your strength. And then once you're done with that, instead of trying to able to do a lot of motion controls kind of heavy when it comes to swiping or sweeping the actual ice itself, it's your chance that you can able to take control of one of those two chows, and as far as I'm aware, they can do a sweeping for you. So yeah, because unlike the forms of how it does on the Wii version though, that's as far as I'm aware, that's all team-based, like 4 players against each other, whilst on the DS version it's basically one-on-one syndrome. So, but either way, that's as far as we can able to explain about that particular version of that event. So anyway, so I suppose no matter what though, we should probably let's just talk to Rouge for a second there, because I get the feeling about the fact that we do need to talk to someone else. Like for instance though, there's going to be a blue toad in the actual gallery right there, but I'm probably not going to focus on this right now, because obviously though we need to take care of some, you know, more missions to tackle. So yeah, let's just go back into the forms of Polastraits quickly, because since we somehow managed able to only did done 2 of those missions for now on in terms of the forms of Icepeak. So for the time being though, let's just go and try to able to actually wrap things up every single aspect in terms of the forms of Polastraits, at least for now anyway, because you see that particular ice pillow right here with all its machinery parts. Well, something tells me that's when Donkey Kong comes into play, and so much so for the fact that we have to do with yet another mini game, and so much so, as far as I'm aware, we are basically almost done every single mini games in terms of adventure tours up to that point. So thankfully though, this mini game right here, if you couldn't tell, it's all button controls, and basically for this one, you have to climb all the way to the top while trying to avoid a lot of hazards, ranging from the icicles right here, as well as bombs, and that's about it basically. But there is one item you definitely need to keep an eye on for. That's what appears to be a bunch of bananas, and basically if you grab the bunch of bananas, basically though, I get the feeling you will able to miraculously trying to able to actually like get the invincibility or something like that. Well, mind you, if you couldn't tell already, as soon as you're able to time your punches correctly while you're trying to able to break the ice cubes and such, basically though, that way you would able to actually not temporarily fall down a little bit. So, and then as soon as you make your way to the top, press A, and then press A again to activate the switch, and that way, that will pretty much lead us to the continuation of Polastraits. So, this means more missions is going to be on its way. So, although, before we get into that though, there is technically one last thing we need to do before we do with more missions, I should say, because, well, we do need to activate, or should I say, we need to compete against with one of those NPC characters and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess that probably explains why, the fact that I was able to try to point things out for the sake of time. So, anyways though, also, another thing else I would like to point out as well is that also out of nowhere, that we're actually going to be receiving a playable demo of the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Now you might be thinking to yourself, is that demo release seems a bit overly redundant right now? Because I already know for the fact that the game has already been out since a couple of days ago, and I can definitely tell for sure there was actually some slight difference, at least in between the final version of the game compared to the demo version, which I know for the fact that someone said in the comments, well, to be more specifically in a different website, that somebody did say that the DK arm fur is fixed in the demo version of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, whilst unlike the defaults of how it does on the final version, the fur does not exist, which I was like, this is awfully confusing, doesn't it? So anyway, as you can see, we are racing against with this penguin right here, and you simply trying to go around the track, and also at the same time, we need to activate all 4 of these switches, and then once you beat the race, like I just did there, then you were able to actually access to more missions in Polastraits. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory. However, if you lose to this race, you have to try again, basically. So thankfully though, unlike the defaults of how it does it on other missions there, if you failed one of those specific races like this, obviously though, that it does not waste your heart or something like that. So yeah, kudos to that. So anyways, let's see what's beyond in this point. So we have the blue toad right here, so I'm very curious to know what the mission is going to be like. And we're actually going back into ice hockey again, so I guess that begs the question for the fact that we can now able to, well, suffice to say though, is about the fact that we've almost gone every single, well, suffice to say, we've only technically got one more all-around type character left, but that'll be for later. And in terms of the forms of the power type characters though, we're now on to 2 so far. Wow, that was fast, especially concerning for the fact that you have to score before anyone else does. So yeah, that was super duper quick. Definitely one of the easiest missions in terms of ice hockey to me in the DS version, assuming of course if you time yourselves perfectly when it comes to likely shooting the actual plug straight forward. And again, sometimes though, the goalie just doesn't seem able to stand a chance sometimes when it comes to likely trying to defend the goal and stuff like that. So yeah, kind of crazy, doesn't it? So anyway, so there's the next maple tree leaf, so that's something's worth noting for the sake of trivia. So yeah, I got nothing else to say. So now I suppose there's also another film that's also celebrated its anniversary recently, at least to be more specifically, on DVD version to be more specifically. That film in questioning was Bambi 2, which I can't believe by saying this is that Bambi 2 was now 19 years old, so by that time until next year, in 2026, that film is going to be 20, which, gee, time flies. Which, that could be also applies with the forms of other stuff during the forms of in 2026, for, you know, trying to celebrate the 20th anniversary based off from several things on 2006, which I don't suppose we're probably not going to talk about it right now, actually, because, well, if you couldn't tell already, we are now going to be moving on to the next mission, where it involves around you going back into alpine skiing giant slalom. And basically for this one right here, is that I'm pretty sure we need to go through only red gates, because if you do manage to go for the blue gates, that counts as a failure. So oh boy, I wonder how that's going to turn out. So let's just hopefully we're able to try to succeed for this point. So at least so far so good anyway, because generally speaking of that, again, I did manage to able to pay attention to the mission description for it, so yeah, I guess that makes it totally obvious. So anyways though, yeah, there's nothing else I can really say at this point in time, folks. I mean, generally speaking though, it's about the fact that I can pretty sure, as far as I'm aware, that I get the feeling we've almost nearly at the forms of the halfway point of February already, because, well, truth be told though, is about the fact that I was originally trying to able to actually go ahead and see the next film of the DreamWorks films lineup. That's what appears to be Dogman, which I definitely heard some good aspects about it, although I could assure you about the fact that I'm pretty sure that particular film did that reviews department pretty dang good so far. Although as far as the box office results, as far as I'm aware, well, I suppose we can probably save that particular discussion until specifically by tomorrow anyway, because as you can tell, we somehow gathered some more crystals, so that way we can able to get rid of the next ice wall, which unfortunately though, suffice to say though, is about the fact that the next boss battle coming up is definitely going to be my least favorite boss in the game to me though, not just because of how the fact that it can be felt a bit lengthy at times, but as well as from that though, it could be frustrating and as well as luck based as well. But either way, let's do the extra mission anyway, taking place in bobsled of all things. And I think for this one right here is that we cannot afford to be able to actually use the boost gauge at all. So yeah, let's go and select Amy and Peach. So yeah, team girls basically. So either way though, I guess that makes it totally obvious. So But yeah, let's begin. So anyway, there's also another thing else I would like to point out as well, actually, is about the fact that yes indeed, speaking of which, in terms of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, well, in our spare own time, we finally managed able to achieve 200% completion on the Switch version of Donkey Kong Country Returns, because, you know, that's why I honestly will say that the Nintendo Switch is still awesome, even to this day, despite some questionable issues with all this, you know, lacking menus on the eShop and all that stuff, which, truth be told, I'm still very curious to know of what the actual eShop itself is going to be like for Nintendo Switch 2. I'm really hoping about the fact that they'll try to add it in a background music of all things, alongside with the Bones of Power effect with the main menu itself as well. And on top of all that stuff though, let's just hype about the fact that the eShop for Nintendo Switch 2 won't be nearly as badly laggy compared to the Bones of Power does on Switch 1. Well, truth be told though, is about the fact that then again though, we've only got about 2 more months left until that particular Nintendo Direct for Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be on its way. So either way though, yeah, pretty successful for our run of this particular mission, and wow, we actually got 3 hearts into our dispersal. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, especially that we somehow got the gold result. So yeah, who knows. And suffice to say, I think we are basically done any other singular missions in Polastraits. So yeah, despite the fact that we still need able to go back into QB with once we do manage able to recruit with more characters at some point, ranging from, let's just say, one of them for Vector, the Crocodile, and as well as that, there's also going to be Daisy and Wario and Waluigi, and aside from that, that's as far as we can able to point things out in terms of the forms of what's going to be coming up in terms of recruiting some more characters, including the final 4, but that's not going to be until for a very long while, because like I said before, it's about the fact that, tell you what, once we do manage to able to go through the forms of Icepeak, I will try to take a break on that game for a while, of this game in particular, before you're able to actually decide able to, like, well, you get the idea, some plans needs to be worked out to be, so anyway, so let's go ahead and use these crystals to get rid of the next ice wall, although this time we are not going to be using green crystals instead of the forms of the yellow crystals, or light blue, or pink, or anything else like that, so including blue ones as well. So yeah, we can now able to proceed, so either way. And truth be told, yeah, this is going to be a pretty stressful boss we have to go through, because as far as what Sonic told me about this, is that whenever he first got to this point, back in, I would say, since 2010 for some time ago, basically though, he just got stuck on this boss fight for quite some time, mainly because of luck-based elements with all his computer AI, to somehow manage able to try to play the entire event aggressively. So yeah, it looks like we got to face up against with Dry Bones, but this time we can only face up against with only 1 Dry Bones instead of 4, unlike on the Wii version, just because of handheld's limitations. So yeah, it looks like we have to face up against him on Curling. So oh boy, wish me luck I suppose, because like I said before, it can be felt a bit stressful at times whenever you first time experiencing this boss battle to begin with. So yeah, let's just go and use Donkey Kong for this one, just in case we do need to complete most of these missions for Donkey Kong at some point once we do manage to able to get ourselves some emblems and such. So yeah, nothing else I can say about it. Alright, here we go. Let's see how this turns out. But like I said before, that out of all of the actual boss battles in the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, as far as I'm aware, on the DS version, and same applies with the Wii version as well, Dry Bones is easily my least favorite boss in the game, just because, not only because it's incredibly long, but as well as in that, it can be felt a bit, like I said before, stressful if you keep on losing to him most of your time, if you have a first time playing through the game. So anyway, let's just go and throw the stone right at the forms of one of those stones of ours. Yeah, because unlike the forms of how it does on the Wii version though, that the entire target itself is basically just plain empty, unless if you manage able to try to throw the stone onto that specific closest target. Whilst in the DS version, as you can tell, before you start your turn, depending if who's going to be in first, that's as far as I can try to describe it. Basically, what happens was though is that if you do manage to select one of these two options with the forms of those stone placements, basically though, that way you can get an extra chance to able to actually deliver some more stones right closer to the target. But I will admit though right away, when it comes to the control scheme on curling in this version, I honestly do prefer the Wii version a lot more, just because not only for its incredible music, but as well as from that, I feel like the controls on the Wii version is pretty self-explanatory to me. Whilst I don't know about you, because it's been like, you know, a very long time since I actually have last experienced this particular version of curling, because the only time I actually did manage to experience this particular event at first glance though is trying to go for this entire boss battle or something like that. So, but I will admit it though as well, I do apologize for my commentary, it's a little bit iffy sometimes, but that's just mainly because that's as far as I can try to talk about in terms of the forms of what's been happening recently. So, well, aside from the fact that, well, I'm not exactly sure we might able to actually hear more about game news or anything else like that in the next couple of days. Although, there is that one last thing I want to discuss upon actually, is that one of those games in particular, which appears to be Football Manager 25, has officially been cancelled after 2 delays, which it might be seems a little bit more obvious than ever, because as far as I'm aware, according to the forms of the description for it, the makers say that they will shift focus to the 2026 version of the game, and basically what that means though, it's already too late for able to actually just start able to develop the 2025 edition of Football Manager game. And there's also another set of articles saying this, is that the latest update on the popular Football Manager series has been cancelled, its makers have announced. Fans of the long-running video game began to speculate about its fate when an update due to be unfulfilled late last month do not arrive, and so much so that in a blog post, developer Sports Interactive told players it had made the difficult decision to cancel the 2025 edition as it was far too far away from the standards you deserve. And it also stated this, it said it would now shift focus to the 2026 version of the game, and fans who had pre-ordered the cancelled release could obtain a refund. So that's always swell, especially because if you do manage able to realize that back then, if you accidentally managed able to pre-order the game, and despite the fact that the 2025 edition is now being cancelled of Football Manager, basically though you get a refund. So that's a pretty good way for noticing this. So, and also Football Manager was first launched back in 2004, jeez, it's been 20 years ago, allows fans to step into the shoes of a giver and guide a chosen team through a session or season. So yeah, I could have able to actually try to explain other details of the actual description for it, but honestly guys, about the fact that they just want to move on to a different version, or should I say a new updated version, just in case they don't want to go completely backwards. So yeah, I guess that makes it totally obvious that moving forward is kind of important if they haven't gone around onto yeah, you get the idea. So if you're probably wondering how come Dry Bones got 1 point, well, obviously that's only for the first end. Well, usually relatively speaking, much like the Wii version, we have to go through 2 ends. So Yeah, that's what I mean about the fact that sometimes this event can drag on at points, which is already depending on the forms of how the fact that if we did manage to able to get exactly the same points as each other, like for instance though, Dry Bones only receives 1 point on end 1, but if I ended up getting 1 point on end 2, that will pretty much lead us to an extra set of rounds, and as a result though, it can pretty much guarantees about the fact that I'm also get my massive screw over if I dare manage to lose this, because otherwise if I lose this mission so badly, I'll have to go for all that tedium all over again. And it's especially noticeable that unlike on the Wii version though, they have to go through so many loading screens every time whenever you do manage to retry that particular boss battle, so yeah, I can see why about the fact that most people seem to really despise face up against with Dry Bones, either on the DS version or the Wii version, which, again though, thankfully though, on the Wii version of London 2012, at the very least there was technically 2 events you can able to actually face off against with Dry Bones in London 2012, like Table Tennis and Dream Hurdles, whilst unlike on the 3DS version, that Dry Bones did somehow team up with Dry Bowser, which as a result it does manage to take place in one of those voting events, as far as I'm aware, which does manage to require not only the microphone, but also the circle pad as well, to able to adjust the forms of the actual specific wind. So, either way, now as you can tell, I've got very lucky at the end, because otherwise though, again, if I lost this, I have to go for all that tedium again, so, all this tedious process again, I should say. So there we go. I was generally surprised about the fact that I did manage to did this mission on my first attempt too, so that's always something. So anyways, we've unlocked the next Dream event, which appears to be a tense short track, which is basically a Dream short track of this particular DS version of that particular point. So yeah, I'm very curious to know how that particular event actually plays out to be. And at least as far as I can recall, we are technically got 1 more Dream event that do needs to be unlocked, by the way, but that's not going to be for quite some time. So either way, let's go ahead and save our game quickly, and now we can able to progress. So either way, yeah, this particular place, it kind of reminds me like a similar vibes as in one of those layouts from The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, including spirit tracks as well, when it comes to likely traversing into like flat surfaces, while at the same time though trying to go for these little holes that pretty much leads us to some continuation portions of the forms of certain parts. So speaking of such, there's Vector right here, and there's another little portal right here which we can able to actually use, but we'll use that in a later time, and I don't need your help, Omochao, because you're useless to me. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games DS version. Is that we're going to be still exploring through Ice Peak, and eventually at some point we will definitely going to be back onto QB Rift to able to tackle for some more missions here and there. So yeah, that'll be fun. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.